evening, everyone. It is so nice to be with you again. This is a Zoom series, Zoom Inged series 38. And this evening, our guest is Dr. Selen Çimen from Muğla Sıtkı Koçman University, ELT department. In fact, she completed her PhD, as far as I remember, at the Middle East Technical University here. That's how I met her, in fact. And then, of course, she went back to her university and she teaches courses there. And as far as I remember, her main interest areas are teacher education and teaching English to young learners. And Selen Hocam, is there any other area that I miss?
Teacher cognition and practices as well.
Yes, teacher cognition and practices. Okay. Well, this evening, her topic is, as you can see on your screen, is related to assessment, something that we really need to cover. And I believe, what I understand from the title, she's going to somehow relate it to the curriculum that we have. So, Selen Hocam, thank you very much for accepting to be our guest this evening. And welcome again. The screen is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Aydın Hocam, and thank you for your invitation as well. It's my pleasure and honor to be here with you this evening. And I also would like to thank the audience to be here listening to me. As you said, this evening, our topic is EFL assessment in Turkey. I looked into teacher practices and what the curriculum suggests them to do. And my research context was the high schools in Turkey. Here is the outline of my presentation this evening. First, I will, under the title of background to the study, I will talk about the assessment dimension of EL curriculum for grades 9-12, which is the current one. I will focus on my research questions, and then I will go on with method findings, conclusion, implications for curriculum for teachers and for learners, and research suggestions for future research, I mean. Let's now first try to remember, or let's say remember what curriculum tells teachers to do for the assessment dimension. I highlighted some keywords and phrases for us all to remember. It suggests teachers to use a mixture of alternative, traditional, and electronic assessment types. The assessment of any type of student output is accepted. But evaluating listening and speaking skills are suggested more, let's say. Here's a chart that illustrates the methods of, or a combination of methods to be used for assessment. And as we all see, pen and paper tests is the main method of assessment. And participation and teacher observation serve us for the assessment as complementary methods or techniques, let's say. It suggests, the curriculum suggests us to assess skills in an integrated way, to assess speaking skills through random real-life situations, to use rubrics and checklists. It is strongly recommended, as you see. And if the teachers can, or if the schools don't have the facilities to carry out the assessment of listening and speaking skills, groups of teachers can do it, it says, can do it on their own together. It also recommends the assessment of reading and writing together as a skills combination, and also a dynamic, communicative, interactive nature of language use is recommended as used in real life to be assessed, and multiple assessment types also, and multiple feedback sources should be used as written, as suggested in the curriculum. Here I have a kind of chart or map of the curriculum to show us the picture, the big picture in the assessment dimension. I hope you can see. Is it readable? Is it okay? No, you can't? Let me do new share then. Where is it?
I can only see a black screen. I don't know what the others. Yeah,
Okay.
the others also say they can't. It's
Now
clear now. It's clear now. Yes.
I try to divide the assessment dimension in the curriculum into three big main dimensions, let's say. First, why? The purpose of assessing learners. And for it, it says to serve language learning goals, to promote and check learning. And please, teachers, do not use assessment as a negative reinforcement instrument as the purpose of assessing learners. The what part, what to assess in language learning tells that please assess understanding, production, use of analytical skills, integrating language skills with a rate to assess speaking skill. But please, teachers, do not merely assess memorization of structures and vocabulary. Okay? And the how part, how to assess learners' methods, learners' progress, which methods and techniques to be employed. The curriculum tells the teachers that please assess learners through authentic assessment that reflect real life experiences, techniques that reflect the learning teaching methods, and tools such as portfolios, projects, and communicative tasks. It also suggests the use of rubrics and checklists, the use of instructional technology for the assessment part, and multi-dimensional feedback sources as teachers, self-assessment, peers, and parents. But not through multiple choice, true, false, and fill-in-the-blanks activities. So this is the summary chart of the assessment dimension of the current curriculum. Let's go on with the presentation. Sorry, I'm really sorry. Okay. And here are my research questions if we are done with the curriculum part. Can I go on, Hocam? Okay. The research questions of my study were, the first one, what are the high school EFL teachers' purposes of assessing learners? By the way, I prepared these research questions based on the curriculum itself, okay? Second one, what aspects of language do EFL teachers assess in their learners? So the what part. And how do high school EFL teachers assess their learners? And the third and the how part. Then I tried to find answers to the question that if the EFL teachers' assessment practices and the assessment dimension of English language curriculum match. And with the last question, I would like to find answers to how do EFL teachers feel about their assessment practices. The study was in qualitative design, which is a systematic subjective approach to explore how the assessment of EFL is implemented at high schools and how EL curriculum deals with it in Turkey. My data came from 50 teachers through an open-ended questionnaire through Google Forms. And again, the questions were prepared based on the assessment dimension of the curriculum. I also had samples of paper and pen exams from 10 teachers, 10 volunteering teachers. And again, I carried out interviews with 10 teachers through Zoom and recorded them upon their consent. The interview was a semi-structured one, and each interview lasted approximately 30 minutes. Who participated? 50 EFL teachers from different cities in Turkey. You can see the list of the cities like Afyon, Muğla, Istanbul, Hatay, Erzurum, Eskişehir, Adıyaman, Bitlis. And I would like to thank the participants to my study from here. Types of high schools are like Anadolu High School, Innovative Science, Occasional High Schools. Degrees of the participant teachers, BA, MA, PhD, you can see the numbers, and the departments they graduated, ELT and British or American Language Literature departments. How did I reach teachers? I had purposive sampling, and of course I used some snowball technique with the help of my acquaintances and colleagues. Okay, analysis of the data. The open-ended questionnaire, which consisted of 10 open-ended questions, I did first cycle coding in the form of in vivo coding. In the second cycle coding, similar codes were identified, merged, and the frequencies were counted. And in the third cycle coding, I finalized the coding. And for exam samples, I carried out content analysis, and interviews were partly transcribed and related excerpts were taken. Okay. Now the most important part, findings. In the why dimension, with the purpose of language assessment, here I listed the teachers' purposes to assess their learners. 32 teachers reported as, I assess my learners to understand how much they learn, to get feedback about my teaching and to tailor my future practices was another purpose of 14 teachers. To help learners improve in the target language was another purpose. To grade them, to make them get prepared for the university exam. So these are all the purposes reported by the teachers to assess their learners. When we look at the purposes in the curriculum, to serve language learning goals, to promote learning, and to check learning were all recommended in the curriculum. And if you remember, not as a negative reinforcement instrument. These were self-report data. When I look at the interview data to what teachers told me about their purposes, for example, one of the teachers told that, unfortunately, the main purpose is to grade them, to give marks. If there was no such obligation, I would have to see the learners' progress as my purpose of assessment to see how they improve in the process, because this is the enjoyable part in teaching. So here I can see that, and there were many answers like this teacher. I can see that this teacher is under pressure of about grading, giving marks, I guess. Another teacher said about his purpose of assessment. Actually, my main purpose is to see if I can teach effectively, how successful I am in teaching a language point. I think assessment is not only related to the learner's success, but also to teachers, to evaluate teachers' way of teaching. There are different types of intelligences, different types of learners, and I wonder if I can address all the intelligence types, learner types, and teach every single student in my classes. This teacher looked at assessment on the side of himself, and by assessing her learners, she also assesses herself, her way of teaching, I guess. Then I wanted to scrutinize the statement in the curriculum as, please don't assess your learners and use assessment as a negative reinforcement instrument. And I asked teachers, are there times you use or have to use assessment as a negative reinforcement instrument? And I got such answers. I never use assessment as a threat, but I warn them to catch the deadlines for the assignments or for performance assessment, or remind them of their responsibilities. Another teacher My main purpose in teaching is to encourage the students and to help them love learning a language. So I always motivate them. Even when they get lower marks, I encourage them by appreciating their effort. I only warn them about their participation and tell them that their participation is also a part of assessment. And I had similar answers to this question, which is, I think, good. And also in parallel with what curriculum tells us to do. The second dimension, what dimension, was about the aspects of language EFL teachers assess in their learners. And again, the self-report data, the teachers' practices were as follows, are listed here. Teacher said, I assess 4 skills. Combination of 2 skills, like reading, listening, speaking, writing, listening, speaking. Also vocabulary plus grammar, use of language, accuracy and fluency, communication skills, progress in learning. I have no specific aspects as given as an answer by 2 teachers, and semantics and pragmatics. So these are good to see here, I think. 4 skills, combination of 2 skills are as recommended, suggested by the curriculum. If we go back to curriculum part, we can see here understanding production, use of analytical skills, integrating language skills. However, we don't see use of analytical skills here as the aspect of language or learning. And as a reminder, please don't assess merely memorization of structures and vocabulary, the curriculum told us, if you remember, tells us, sorry. Then I looked at the sample paper and pen exams of 10 teachers. But unfortunately, I saw grammar, vocabulary, reading in an isolated way, speaking in an isolated way, and writing in an isolated way. What I couldn't find 10 samples of exams were no listening skill, no skill integration, no analytical skills, but only memorization of vocabulary and structures, unfortunately. I'm going on. I don't know if I'm too fast, but I'm going on. Okay. The how dimension of the teacher's practices in assessment is, as you see, assessment tools, techniques employed by the teachers. Again, the questionnaire data, teachers' self-report of their practices in assessment revealed that I mainly use paper and pen exams. Okay, no problem. Online games, online practice, oral exams, the use of rubrics and checklists, project, classroom observation and in-class assessment, and presentation as tools or methods of assessment. If we remember, curriculum recommended teachers to use authentic assessment, tools such as portfolios, projects, communicative tasks, the use of rubrics and checklists, the use of instructional technology. We can find all those 3 issues in teachers' self-report, but authentic assessments I didn't see. Again, curriculum suggested teachers not to use or not to assess learners through multiple choice, true, false, and fill in the blanks activities. But we will see in a minute what happens. Here, when I again examine the sample exams by 10 teachers, 10 different teachers, 7 out of 10 had multiple choice questions. 7 out of 10 had fill in the blanks, matching, sentence completion, dialogue completion, open-ended questions to trigger imagination and creativity. This was really good, I remember. Turkish equivalents of individual words in English, grouping and classifying words, and word formation. We are going on. Reading was assessed through comprehension questions and true-false exercises. Speaking was assessed through answer the questions about yourself kind of questions and multiple choice. And writing was assessed through choose one of the given topics and write about it, or write about a festival you know, kind of parts, kind of exercises. But they were all in isolation. Again, I found no listening, no skill integration, and no authentic assessment in the samples of exams. Now, I want to go deeper into the use of authentic assessment, what teachers think about it, what teachers do for authentic assessment, and I asked them some questions in the interviews. Before it, maybe we need to remember what authentic assessment is. So I here have some included some definitions here. In authentic assessment, assessment is carried out through tasks that enable learners to connect their learning to real-world issues and problems. According to Wiggins, who coined the term authentic assessment, says that authentic assessment is a true test of intellectual achievement or ability because it requires students to demonstrate their deep understanding, higher order thinking, and complex problem solving through the performance of exemplary tasks. Authentic tasks replicate real-world challenges and standards of performance that experts or professionals, language users in our context, of course, typically face in the field. And authentic assessment can serve as a powerful tool for assessing students' 21st century competencies in the context of global educational reforms. These are for reminding us of the authentic assessment. Then, when I looked deeper into it and asked teachers if they carry out authentic assessments, and if yes, how they do it, please, I wanted them to specify. 31 of the teachers, participant teachers said, no, I don't use authentic assessment because of such reasons. Not usually, our focus is different. The aim in my context is to help them prepare for the university exam. No, but I use authentic materials during the classes. So these are some reasons for not using authentic assessment. But I see a dilemma here with this teacher's response. If you use authentic materials during the classes, why not ask or why not give assessment tasks that are authentic to the learners? So this is a kind of dilemma, I guess, because we have to have a harmony between our teaching, ways of teaching, and also ways of assisting learners. 19 of the participating teachers said, yes, I use authentic assessment. But here, there is something to note here, which is very important for me. One of the lovely teachers said, yes, at least once a term, we do role play or students prepare for a speech on a specific topic, and I evaluate them according to a checklist. Question mark. I will come to it later. Yes, we do performance presentations, role plays, and portfolios. Again, question marks. Yes, I use reflection paper. At the end of each session, I want them to write a short paragraph about what they have learned. This is kind of exit ticket rather than authentic assessment, I guess. Yes, I assign a reading passage to hear their pronunciation and fluency in language. They record their voice and send me. I don't know what it is. This is something totally different. So my, let's say, conclusion, which I draw from those responses and the similar ones, of course, not only four, it is obvious that some of the teachers confuse authentic assessment with performance assessment, which is seen here with the quotation marks. And some of them are totally confused about authentic assessment. They do something else, but they name it as authentic assessment. However, literature suggests that there is a need to differentiate performance assessment from authentic assessment because not all performance assessments are authentic. For example, for performance assessment, sometimes we require learners to make presentations in the form of monologues, but in real life, we don't have such performances, let's say. One teacher said, yes, I try to use authentic assessment. I usually prepare some tasks to check if they can transfer grammar knowledge and vocabulary knowledge to the given real life situation. And this made me smile. Only one teacher made me smile, made me happy, I guess. We are going on with the use of authentic assessment in the interview data. And let's look what happened, what the findings are. I tried to use this kind of tasks in my classes, but as a learning task, not for assessment purposes. But now I can see when I talk to you about this, I have never used authentic assessment so far because in the interview, I explained what it is and I gave some example tasks to them to clarify it. When I use such tasks, only 1 or 2 students are interested, but their level of English is not enough for the task. They don't know what to say, so it didn't work in my context. It was not applicable. Another teacher here was more positive towards authentic assessment and said, actually, when I was listening to your explanation, I asked myself why we haven't used such tasks for assessment. And first thing next term, I will focus on it. I will try it. I like the idea very much, and I believe that I'll get positive feedback from students. In fact, our curriculum emphasizes problem-solving skills and experiential learning, so I see that authentic assessment is convenient for it. I will definitely try it. Well, another teacher's response, well, I can say that I have never used it because to be able to use it, I need to talk in English, and students need to understand what is said in English, and they need to talk in English again, but it's not somehow possible. So only one teacher was positive towards authentic assessment, but our participating teachers had some reasons for not using it. Here I want to have a warning about the use of authentic assessment, and I think it's very important. We need to ask ourselves, is the task itself, like having a flight and trying to catch the plane before the boarding pass is closed, for example, authentic for the learners? If the task or the theme or the topic of the task is something they experience in their real lives, this is very important. So we need to be aware of the learner profile and design or choose appropriate tasks for authentic assessments. I find this very important. We are now finished with the authentic assessment part, and now I wanted to look deeper into the use of rubric and checklists. And fortunately, 40 teachers said, yes, we use rubrics and checklists. And they emphasized the objectivity of assessment about the use of rubrics and checklists. Like, yes, they have to be objective while assessing kind of responses were given. One said, yes, because we have to use them, but the rubrics are not suitable for our students. There's a gap between what we teach and what they can do. If you have such an experience about rubrics, you can adapt your rubrics according to your students' needs, levels, interests, whatever you do, you can adapt them rather than just adopt them. And 10 of them said no. The use of instructional technology to assess learners was another important point for me, and also which was suggested in the curriculum again. And 40 of them said yes. And the applications here, or the let's say applications here listed here, are used by the teachers: Google Classroom, Wordwall, Kahoot, Quizlet, etc. 10 of them said no, I don't use, and stated reasons like school lacks facilities, students lack opportunities, or students lack capability of using them. These were the reasons of 10 teachers who said that they don't use instructional technology to assess learners. I don't know how students lack capability of using them, because they are digital natives indeed, but of course there may be some regions, some cities, some villages that students may not have the capability. One of the teacher's insight was interesting for me, so I included her response here. Before the online classes, I used to use digital tools, but after the pandemic, since all the teachers started to use digital tools, I started to use traditional activities and materials and assignments, such as designing something, making an experiment at home, etc., because learners have already got bored. This is, of course, something that was brought out by the pandemic, and I really appreciate this teacher's effort to be interesting to the learners, to have their interest. We are going on with the how dimension, and providing feedback is the topic now. I asked them, do you give feedback after you assess the learners? If yes, how do you give feedback? 37 hopefully said yes. And their responses were like, by giving their exam paper back and let them see their mistakes. 30. I take notes based on the exam papers, and I emphasize problematic points and common mistakes and talk about them in the class. 5 of them. Yes, I give feedback individually. I give written feedback for writing. So here I summarized the responses by 37 teachers as 35-1-1. If you remember, curriculum suggests us to use multi-dimensional feedback sources as teachers, peers, and if possible, of course, parents. But here we see that by giving exam papers back and let them see their mistakes is our teachers' understanding of giving feedback. Of course it works, I appreciate it, but we can vary our ways of giving feedback, of course. 3 of them said no, I don't give feedback in crowded classes. When we focused on it more, we see some interesting points of feedback topic. When peers give feedback to each other, the other student feels himself or herself as unsuccessful, so we don't use peer feedback. Students don't want to be corrected by their classmates. They don't like it. Another teacher said, feedback is kind of neglected by the students. They just focus on the grades they get. They don't think about their mistakes. They don't reflect on them. They don't regard them as an opportunity to learn. Okay. This part is more interesting to me. Once I tried to employ peer feedback, but they were so harsh to each other. They don't know how to give feedback. They just criticize each other in a discouraging way. What is more, school administration warned me as, hocam sen en iyisini bilirsin, niye öğrenciyi katıyorsun işin içine? With an out-of-date understanding. The case is the same for self-assessment. So learners need to learn how to do this constructively. Even teachers don't know how to give feedback to each other, but if we train them how to do it for peer assessment and self-assessment, I believe they can do it. The insight of this teacher is very important to me because it is really the case for most of the classes, language classes in Turkey, I believe. And I also observe 19 teachers. Okay, that's all with the giving feedback part again. And now we are on teachers' feelings and ideas about their assessment practices. 19 teachers have positive feelings about their assessment practices. They responded in a way that I try to design assessment tools that are applicable in class, that are reliable and valid. I think there is no best assessing tool or technique, sorry for the spelling, but the best way of contributing to students' language progress is giving feedback after each assessment. It helps them to see their strengths and weaknesses. And other positive teachers' responses were similar. 15 teachers unfortunately had negative feelings. They used phrases like, I'm not satisfied, I'm really sorry, don't like, I feel worn out, I feel worried, because of the reasons like learners' low level, lack of time, heavy workload, class size, and learners' lack of interest. What they said again, I feel really sorry about assessment. I have the knowledge and I think that I should be able to transfer what I know to my practices. However, my context hinders me from applying what I know, and also the levels of students are very low. I make effort on my side, but I can't do anything, then I feel worn out. Or another teacher, I don't like the assessment practices in my country. I can't assess students' writing and speaking skills sufficiently. Students can be good at traditional exams, but they are not good at real-life communication. Neden acaba? Somebody need to answer this question. Neden acaba? 16 teachers felt neutral, but believed that they need to improve themselves in their assessment practices, and they gave responses like, I do it traditionally and it's okay for me, but I also think that I need to be more innovative. So we have 15 teachers happy, 15 teachers not happy, and some 15 teachers are neutral about their practices. Now the conclusion part. I have 4 main conclusions drawn out of this study. The first one, there are some points that the assessment dimension of English language curriculum and teacher practices match. And they are like purpose of assessment, use of rubrics and checklists, the use of instructional technology. They are okay, I can say. The second one, however, in some points, like the aspects of language which are assessed in the exams or assessment practices, types of activities and tasks included in the exams, the use of authentic assessment, for example. Even though teachers' self-reports show a correspondence with the assessment dimension of the curriculum, sample paper and pen exams revealed a mismatch. So they say, yes, I do it in that way. But when we look at their exams, we can't see those things. So there is a mismatch between teacher practices and the curriculum. Third conclusion, in terms of the use of authentic assessment, teachers' self-report revealed that teachers are confused about the concept. Exam samples and interviews revealed that teachers do not use authentic assessments in their classes. And the last and the fourth conclusion is that teachers seem to be the only feedback providers. Other feedback sources like peers, parents, computer mediation are not involved in the assessment processes. These were the conclusions drawn from my study. And of course, I have some implications. Assessment dimension of the English language curriculum needs to have greater breadth and depth. It needs to have a framework, a deeper and more detailed maybe framework to tell teachers how to do what it is recommended there. Some implications for teachers. Teachers need support to catch up with recent trends in language assessment and gain literacy in language assessment as well. They need training about designing integrated skills-based exams and also the use of authentic assessment. Hocam, I know how you, worked on it. I know it, but... And also teachers need support to develop in creating effective feedback mechanisms by using alternative ways and with multiple sources. Learners need training on how to give peer feedback and how to do self-assessment as from lower grades, maybe from primary school, to create a culture on this, because this is related to the culture, I guess. Suggestions for future research. Researchers can focus on how to create a comprehensive and effective framework for assessment in the curriculum. They can focus on developing teachers' knowledge on authentic assessment and also developing learners' understanding of peer feedback and self-assessment. And I would like to stop here, finalize my presentation with a quotation. To enable the power of authentic assessment to unfold in the classrooms of the 21st century, it is essential that teachers are not only assessment literate, but also competent in designing and using authentic assessments to support student learning and mastery of the 21st century competencies. I would like to thank you all for listening to me, and thank you, Aydın Hocam, thank you, Inget, for giving me this opportunity to share my research, my ideas with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Selen Hocam. It was a great presentation, but it was also heartbreaking because every sentence you said, it kind of scratched a wound and my wound started bleeding. What I understand from your presentation is what teachers say and what they do not match, unfortunately. Selen Hocam, a quick question. You talked about the group of teachers who took part in this project, and you also mentioned that 13 of them were graduates of language and literature departments. Did they hold a kind of a certificate? Did you check that? Are they aware of teaching learning aspect of this or what?
Most probably they are, because they are teachers who work at public schools.
Okay.
Public schools.
So allegedly, they do have some kind of teaching certificate. Okay.
Formation thing.
Yeah, I know. Let's not talk about that here. Okay. Where there were very interesting comments and remarks in the chat box, but there were no questions. My dear colleagues, if you have any questions, or if you want to share your remark or comment publicly with the group, please raise your hand so that I can see you and I can give you the screen so that you can say whatever you want to say or ask. Yeah, I think, Ali Hocam, we have already discussed this. I don't recall when, culturally speaking, we don't know how to give feedback. None of us do. As teachers, we don't know how to give feedback. Students don't know how to give feedback. Feedback means for us criticism, which is a huge mistake, of course. Feedback is supposed to lead the way. Feedback is supposed to help the learner learn. Feedback is not to demotivate people. It is to motivate people. But I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm too harsh. Maybe I shouldn't say culturally. Maybe it's something related to our psychology. Maybe we are all crazy. We have got bananas. I don't know. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Underlining assessment culture connection, yes. Cemal Hocam says we may start building feedback culture in our learners in L1 first and for all courses. Oh, yes, of course.
Starting from
Maybe, yes, Selen Hocam.
starting from the primary level, we can do it.
Yeah.
It's
And
not,
do you also agree that it should not only be in English courses,
of
it
course,
should be a part of all courses.
of course, of
Yeah,
course.
I
Just
totally,
agree.
yeah, I totally agree too. Because if you do it only as a part of a language course, then
Mhm.
students cannot digest it, cannot take in.
Mhm.
So it must be a part of the whole curriculum, I believe. Another question, Sarah, just popped in my mind. Um, are the teachers familiar with the curriculum?
I also included such a question in the interviews, and most of them said yes, we are
Oh,
familiar. We discuss it in our teacher groups, etc. Uh,
hmm.
so most of them said yes, I am familiar.
Okay. Hmm. Because uh, with the groups that we used to work, they think that curriculum is the book.
Mhm.
So they see it as the equivalents. They can't understand the fact that the course book is only a reflection of the curriculum, and the curriculum is available for everyone on the Board of Education's website. They can download it, they can read it, they can understand the philosophy behind it, but they're not aware of that. They think that müfredat means course book.
Yes,
Yeah. And müfredat, I believe, is the old
term
term. Nowadays, we say program.
program. Mhm.
Program. Okay. We got used to hear icat çıkar. Yes. Cem Yılmaz. I immediately recall his remarks, He was talking about the invention of the telephone, and he was saying, can you imagine Bell's wife saying, I icat çıkarmamışım. That was a wonderful joke. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Aysel Hocam says overcrowded classrooms are one of the most serious problems in assessment. Do you agree with that, Selen Hocam? Is it an obstacle, or can teachers overcome that overcrowded problem, being overcrowded problem?
I think if we want, we can do anything we want. So,
Mhm.
of course, it's hard to have a crowded classroom. I really understand it. But instead of checking multiple choice or fill in the blanks kind of questions, we can also check uh, assessment tasks which are authentic.
Mhm.
So we zaten check the exams, for example, but we can
Mhm.
instead of fill in the blanks or multiple choice or true false, we can do it for authentic tasks in the exams. So I think we can deal with it. We can overcome it.
Mhm. 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 Do they observe in the classroom? Do you believe that?
Uh,
They say that they observe.
mhm.
I mean, teachers. But
They say that
do you think that they are honest and sincere?
I have also something to say in this in my research, but I didn't include it in the results because it would be too long.
Mm-hmm.
I asked them in the interview that do you do that? Do you observe? Do you carry out in-class assessment?
Mm-hmm.
They say yes, and I believe that they really do it. But it is again something somehow limited. They regard in-class assessment and observation only for participation of the learners,
Mm-hmm.
not some kind of opportunity to assess them, to give feedback. Okay, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I am clear now, but they just of course they appreciate learners' participation, their
Mm-hmm.
engagement, but in-class assessment is something complicated, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
but just limited to observing their participation.
Yeah. So is it possible to claim that these concepts, authentic assessment, in-class assessment, they are not 100% clear for teachers, and they are not 100% accepted by teachers. Is it possible to say that?
Yes, definitely, hocam.
So maybe we need a kind of an in-service training program, but we have thousands of English teachers. That's going to take a long time. And it's amazing to see that only a limited number of teachers join these meetings and webinars, despite the fact that they're open to everyone, and despite the fact that they are free. These webinars and meetings, INGED is not the only source. There are other sources, other publishing companies, I believe, they also hold these sessions. Volkan Hocam, are you here? Poor Volkan Hocam, by himself, has been having these sessions live stream on Instagram, but I can only see a handful of teachers attending these. And amazingly, most of them are private school teachers. Believe me, Selen Hocam, I mean, our participants, for example, half of them are academics, half are teachers, half of that half are private school teachers. Unfortunately. Yeah. Okay. No other questions, guys? My dear colleagues, are you tired? See, I'm the youngest, I believe, in this group. Okay. And one remark before I say farewell. I love the remark that you used from one teacher who said, the task, excuse me, the level of the students, Şebnem Hocam, you unmuted yourself again. You always do that. The level of
I'm so sorry.
students, okay, the level of students was not suitable for the task. And in the chat box, I wrote the correct remark is the task was not suitable for the level of the students, because the teacher brings the task. Okay, so you know your students, you know the level of your students. So why do you bring that task, for God's sake, and then blame the level of the students?
And just like the rubrics.
Yeah, rubrics. Oh my God.
They are not suitable to my students. Okay, you can adapt them. Why not?
You can find simpler ones.
Or find simpler ones, of
Internet
course.
is full of them. I mean, I have seen kindergarten teachers using rubrics, students drawing little smiling faces just to evaluate themselves. So it is possible. And you're talking about high school teachers. So we are talking about mature, intellectually developed people who can actually say, honestly, I haven't learned anything in this lesson. Yeah. Well, I think we have a long way to go, but at least we are taking smaller steps just to reach our goal. We have a long journey, but with this group of people, we can manage it. I believe that. Selen Hocam, thank you. Thanks a million for that wonderful, thought-provoking talk. And as usual, my dear colleagues, thank you very much. I mean, it's a privilege to have you guys as my colleagues, not the others, you guys, okay? And I know Bayram is coming. I wish you all the best for Bayram. Enjoy yourselves, stay safe, and hope to see you after Bayram. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, hocam.
Thank you. Bye-bye.